as a freedom fighter who liberates both finance and business managers from the huge amounts of detail and the proliferation of complex systems that increase their workload and deny them time for reflection and analysis. Second, as an analyst and advisor who, by breaking free from detail and complexity, creates time for finance to provide the information that managers need to make effective decisions. Next, as an architect of adaptive management, who replaces the chains of the detailed annual planning cycle with effective steering mechanisms, such as continuous planning reviews and rolling forecasts. Fourth, as a warrior against waste, who is able to focus on those huge swaths of cost that have remained unchallenged for years. Fifth, as a master of measurement, who brings measurement back under control and provides clear guidance about its meaning to managers at every level. Sixth, as a regulator of risk, who provides an effective framework for good governance and risk management by using multiple levers of control, including governance controls, internal controls, strategic controls, and feedback controls. And finally, as a champion of change, who re-examine their vision and their goals as a means of transforming the corporate finance organization.
Just about every review of your book focuses on the role of the CFO as a freedom fighter. So tell me, Jeremy, do you expect corporate financial executives to join modern-day Lech Walesas at the ramparts?
It's not exactly a term you would associate with the CFO, never mind most managers. But of course what I mean is the CFO, and it has to be the CFO. There isn't anyone else that can make this move. It's to liberate both finance and the rest of the organization from the detail and complexity I talked about, from the measurement mania that we have. I mean, most organizations are in a fog of measurement. You know, they can't see the forest for the trees. You know, they're drowning in data and thirsty for knowledge. We've all heard these little, sound bites, but they're ever so true. They still exist. Most large organizations, or mid to large organizations, to broaden it out, build this huge control layer, and it includes finance, but it's not just finance. And the underpinning assumption is that decisions are taken at the top and implementation happens further down. So we need all of these control levers, a bit like puppets on a string. We're working the puppets up here, and we have all of these control systems. They include targets, they include incentives, they include performance appraisals, they now include balanced scorecards, they include customer relationship management systems, they include Six Sigma, they include knowledge management systems. Of course, there's a core of a great idea in all of these programs, but the way that they're implemented is in the management factory. They become new control systems owned by typically finance or marketing or HR to control the actions, the thinking and the actions of the people at the front line. So it's a burden, and it's a huge cost burden. 20 to 40% of costs, I reckon, go into this management factory. Toyota doesn't have that factory. American Express is dismantling it slowly. Other organizations like Unilever are getting there. Even the World Bank, one of the highest profile bureaucracies in the world, are at least recognizing the problem. I'm not saying that they're really getting to grips with it yet, but they're talking about it. And many other companies are thinking in the same way.
Well, most of our viewers would probably agree with you, Jeremy, about the existence of a measurement mania. Does that mean that the CFO doesn't or shouldn't have a role in performance measurement?
The CFO, or finance in general, is probably the one function in every organization that sees everything. And they see it through the whole performance management process. It's the one process that connects every part of the organization, because it connects planning, it connects resource management, and it connects how we evaluate and measure performance. And that's usually and traditionally done through the budgeting system. So the CFO is the owner of that process, basically. We manage to accounting cycles instead of economic cycles or strategic cycles. We manage to quarter ends, year ends. What's magic about those? they're just inventions. We've got to get on with managing the business and not the numbers. That's a big message for CFOs. And of course, when I say this, what do they say? Well, yeah, we've got to play the game. We're stuck. It's Wall Street. They're demanding the targets, you know, and they want to know how we're doing towards a quarter end and how we're doing towards a year end. So we end up in this earnings game. We don't like it, but we're stuck with it. And I say, well, is that really true? Many companies now are actually opting out. There was a big McKinsey report only last year on the whole impact of managing earnings. And their conclusion was absolutely crystal clear. It makes absolutely no difference to the share price. So why are you doing it? Why are you're holding yourself out like this and making it so difficult for you to change?
Well, for the past 4 or 5 years, companies in general and CFOs in particular have had to respond to corporate scandals, whether it's Enron in this country or Parmalat on a global scale. I know that there has been some research done on this topic by IFAC and others. What have they uncovered? I mean, is there a common thread?
The overwhelming common threads are usually a charismatic CEO, the CEO's hero. You know, the life of an average CEO in the Fortune 500 is just over 3 years. So they come in typically with a big statement to make, and that's usually a reorganization or an acquisition or something to sort of kickstart the share price, a big promise. Consultants call them big, hairy, audacious goals, BHAGs. And certainly that's our commitment for the next year. Then what happens? We cascade that down through the organization so that everyone owns a little piece of that target. And we manage to that.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you, Jeremy, but what you say sounds reminiscent of the quality management issue and the work of Dr. Deming that we covered on this program a few years ago.
Sure, yeah. I'm following a road that Deming trod many years ago, particularly when it comes to target setting. I mean, one of my big issues that I just bang on about all the time, and most CFOs still don't get it, and not just CFOs, I mean most senior managers, is that targets are the biggest weapon of mass destruction we've ever designed in our organization. Then you have set in stone, you have set the result, you're managing to a result and fixing the processes to meet that result. And that then puts you in a very difficult situation if the assumptions that underpin that target and the budget that supports it are wrong. And of course, most of them are wrong. So we end up cutting investment, we end up cutting recruitment, training, marketing. We mess with the business to achieve the number. And it's uncanny if you look at large organizations, how close for 2 or 3 years in a row, how often they actually get within 1 cent of that commitment. But they can't continue doing it. You know, they run out of steam, and then they take the proverbial big bath and start again. It's an insane way to run a business.
Well, it makes sense that the CFO, who views the entire organization, has a longer time frame than the CEO. But what happens when the new CEO comes with a big, hairy, audacious goal? Is it really the role of corporate finance to say, the king has no clothes? That's not a way to win friends and influence people, is it?
That's, if I may say so, a very good question. A strong CFO, a well-respected CFO, one would have hoped would step up to that role. Because that is the role of the honest broker. It's the role of a courageous, far-sighted senior executive in any organization.